Hi, my name's Felicity Hammond and this is my work called Reactor. It's here at Signal Film and Media in Barrow in Furness. And the work was really sort of set against the backdrop of Barrow's defence industry and sort of long-standing history of shipbuilding and the manufacturing of submarines. Recent years have been quite interested in the production of new autonomous submarines. This is something that's kind of gone to market in the last couple of years, not just in the UK but also globally. It's become a part of sort of national defence. And I'm really sort of reflecting on, well, what does it mean when these autonomous technologies are applied within a military context? What does that look like and how does it play out? And the use of the control room becomes a stage on which we might speculate what that future might look like. The film that is central to the work is made on a games engine software called Unreal Engine, and that's a really deliberate choice and aesthetic because through doing so we're able to think about what are the different sort of avenues that this technology might take. One of the things that I was thinking about is the way that these kind of simulations are used within military training. So there was this kind of interest in, we might think about the gamification of war, which has always been sort of embedded into war strategy, but there is a relationship between technology and the way that the way that war is planned and how machines and systems and people are trained. So that's one of the reasons that I wanted to work with this software. I think one of the things that you can see in the film, particularly if you know the local landscape of Barrow, is that it feels like Barrow, but it's not quite Barrow. And again, this is something that I think is really present within these sort of simulated environments where places are reconstructed and something can play out, but it feels like a sort of alternative version of that place. So one of the aesthetic qualities that has sort of made it into the work is this sort of yellowy, orangey, brown kind of tone. And that really refers to the aesthetic of sonar images. So submarines use sonar technology as a way to build up a picture of its environment. So it's done by, it's made by bouncing sound waves off underwater objects. So a device called a transducer emits pulses of sound, and these sound waves hit the seafloor or objects and they reflect back as echoes. So by measuring how long the echo takes to return, computers can map out the shape and the texture of its environment. And one of the interesting things that came up through a workshop with participants that were connected to the shipyard, this was a big part of the process of creating the script and the narrative drive for the work. One of the conversations that came up during that workshop was the similarities that submarines have to whales in relation to how sonar is used. So whales use a sort of biological sonar. They use something called echolocation in a similar way, where echoes are bounced off objects in order to map the environment, and that helps them to sort of hunt for prey. And through further research, I think what was quite interesting was thinking about the similarities between the whale and the submarine, that they have this this sort of bodily similarity. And this also came up through using 3D assets of them as well when building the film. The sort of mesh of the submarine is actually quite similar to the mesh of the whale. I think something that came up that's really tragic but also very fascinating was in World War II, where whales were accidentally targeted because from above they looked like submarines. So the whale became this motif, I suppose, when we get halfway through this sort of looped moving image work, that is part of the installation. The submarine meets a whale and suddenly realises that it looks like it, and it becomes a mirror of itself. So the whale becomes this metaphor for what, for the slippages that can happen within these technological systems. And I suppose I was thinking a lot about this sort of idea of mistargeting and where the human is involved and where the machine is involved, and where those sort of decisions, where sort of decision and error might start to cross paths.